I found an old VHS tape. It showed my death. Chapter 1. The tape? If I had known what was on that VHS tape, I never would have taken it. It started on a damp, overcast afternoon, the kind that makes the world feel slightly off-kilter. I had nothing to do that day, so I decided to wander through a flea market on the outskirts of town. I had been there before, rows of sagging tables covered in old books, broken radios, and tarnished jewelry. The place smelled like mildew, rust, and stale popcorn from the lone food stand near the entrance. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just browsing, passing time. That's when I saw it, a cardboard box, shoved beneath a rickety table, nearly hidden in shadow, unlike the other items around it, which were neatly arranged for display. This box seemed forgotten, discarded. The cardboard was damp and sagging, the corners torn as if something had clawed at them. I crouched down, pulling back the flaps. Inside, a mess of VHS tapes. Some still had their labels, old movies, forgotten home recordings. But one tape stood out immediately. It was jet black. No sticker, no writing. Just a small, yellowed piece of masking tape, stuck to its plastic casing. A message was scrawled in shaky, uneven handwriting. "Watch me." A shiver crawled up my spine. I picked up the tape, feeling its way in my hands. The plastic was slightly sticky, like it had been handled too much or stored somewhere damp. I glanced around. The vendor, a thin man with deep wrinkles and a cigarette dangling from his lips, was busy arguing with an elderly woman over the price of a rusted lamp. He hadn't noticed me. "Hey!" I called out, holding up the tape. "How much?" The vendor finally turned. His eyes flickered to the tape in my hand, and for a split second I swear I saw something. Fear? Disgust? Whatever it was, it disappeared quickly. "Take it," he said flatly. I frowned. "What?" "Take it," he repeated, his voice lower now. "It's free." A strange, uneasy feeling settled in my gut. "Why?" He exhaled a slow stream of smoke and looked me dead in the eye. "Some things shouldn't be sold." I should have put the tape back right then. I should have walked away. But I didn't. Curiosity is a hell of a thing. I tucked the VHS under my arm and left. Chapter 2. Press play. By the time I got home, the sky had darkened to an inky gray. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of rain that hadn't fallen yet. My apartment was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I tossed my keys on the counter and set the VHS tape next to my old player. I hadn't used the thing in years, but I kept it for nostalgia's sake. The tape sat there like it was waiting for me. I hesitated. Something about it felt wrong. The words "watch me" on the yellow tape label almost felt like a dare, but I wasn't a coward. I slid the tape into the VCR, pressed play, and sat down. The screen flickered. For a few seconds, nothing but static. A softness filled the room, like the tape itself was breathing. Then a grainy image appeared, a dimly lit room. It took me a moment to realize it was my living room. My breath caught in my throat. The camera angle was slightly tilted, like the footage had been recorded from a hidden corner of the room. The timestamp in the bottom corner read, "Tomorrow, 2:37 a.m. I frowned. That didn't make sense. This was an old VHS. How could it show something that hadn't happened yet? Then, the me on the screen walked into the frame. I felt my stomach drop. It was me, wearing the same gray hoodie I had on now. I watched myself stumble groggily into the room, rubbing my eyes like I had just woken up. The version of me on the screen stood still for a moment, head tilted slightly to the side. Then, his eyes snapped toward the camera. I jolted back. My own eyes, but not my eyes. They were empty, black pits, staring directly at me. I wanted to turn the tape off. Every cell in my body screamed at me to turn it off. But I didn't. The figure on the screen smiled. A slow, unnatural grin that spread too wide, stretching the skin like it wasn't meant to move that way. And then, the screen cut to static. A sharp ringing noise filled the room, piercing my skull. I scrambled for the remote, jabbing at the buttons, but the TV wouldn't turn off. Then, the ringing stopped. The static faded to black. For a long moment, there was nothing. Just silence. Then, new words appeared on the screen. See you soon. And the tape ejected itself. I sat there, heart hammering against my ribs. My hands trembled as I reached for the tape, but the plastic was ice cold to the touch. A sudden noise made me jump. A soft creak. I turned toward my hallway. My bedroom door, which I had left open, was now slightly ajar. A shadow moved inside. I wasn't alone. Chapter 3. Something is watching. I didn't move. I couldn't. My bedroom door, which had been wide open when I got home, was now ajar. A sliver of darkness stared back at me, and something inside was moving. My pulse pounded in my ears. I forced myself to take a slow step toward the hallway. The floor creaked under my weight, and the movement in the bedroom stopped. I held my breath. Then, a whisper, soft, rasping, coming from inside the room. It wasn't words, just breathing, shallow, ragged, like someone was struggling to stay silent. I wasn't alone. With shaking hands, I reached for the nearest object, a heavy metal flashlight from the counter. I raised it like a weapon, forcing my feet forward. One step, another. The door was just a few inches open. I could see the edge of my bed, my dresser, my closet doors. Everything looked normal, except for the fact that I knew it wasn't. My fingers tightened around the doorknob. I pushed it open. The room was empty, or at least it looked that way. My bed was undisturbed. My closet doors were closed, and the window was locked from the inside. I scanned the corners, my skin crawling. The air inside the room felt heavier, like something had been there only moments ago. I stepped inside. Silence. I turned to leave. Then I saw it. The closet doors. They were closed, but not completely. A thin crack of darkness ran between them, a sliver barely noticeable. And from inside that crack, a single, glassy eye stared back at me. My body moved before my brain did. I lunged backward, my breath caught in my throat. The flashlight slipped from my grasp, clattering against the floor. The closet door slammed shut. The sound echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. For a moment, I was frozen. Then I ran. I bolted out of the bedroom, down the hall, straight to my front door. My hands fumbled with the locks, but they wouldn't turn. The deadbolt stuck, refusing to budge. A new sound filled the apartment. A click, then another, then another. The VCR had turned itself back on. I spun around. The TV screen flickered back to life, filling the room with dim, bluish light. Static hissed, warping into a distorted image. It was my bedroom, the same shot from the VHS tape. Only now, the closet doors were wide open, and standing in front of them was me, not the real me. The other me. He stared directly into the camera. Those same empty, black pits where his eyes should be. Then he raised his hand. Slowly, deliberately, he pointed. At me. A cold chill rushed through my veins. My breathing turned shallow. The figure on the screen grinned. Then the image cut to black. A single phrase appeared. Let me in. And behind me, the bedroom door creaked open. Chapter 4. The Hidden Truth. I didn't think. I acted. The instant that bedroom door creaked open, I didn't hesitate. Without even thinking about it, I turned and bolted down the hallway, sprinting toward the stairs. My heart was pounding in my chest, each beat vibrating through my bones. I reached the landing and skidded to a halt, my shoes barely gripping the polished floors. I heard it, the whispering, that strange, faint, raspy voice, like someone speaking from a distance. It was calling me, but it wasn't my name. I tried to ignore it. I had to get out. I had to leave. I stumbled toward the front door again, throwing myself at the deadbolt. But this time, something was different. I could feel it. The door was heavier. The bolt was impossibly stuck. I couldn't move it. My body shook with panic. Sweat ran down my back as I tried to twist the knob again and again, but it wouldn't budge. I looked toward the living room, but the doorframe, which should have been empty, was now lined with shadow. I felt something watching me. I wasn't alone anymore. A shape moved in the darkness. At first, I thought I imagined it. Then, The silhouette stepped into the dim light. It was a figure from the screen, my doppelganger. The version of me that shouldn't exist, the one with the blackened eyes and that chilling, twisted grin. I froze. It tilted its head, that impossible grin stretching wider. Without thinking, I rushed toward the window. I needed an escape. But before I could get halfway to the glass, the figure spoke. "You can't escape." Its voice was muffled, warped, like it was speaking through water. But it was unmistakable. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just staring at me now. It was waiting for something. Then I heard it. The tap of footsteps from behind me. I whipped around, and there, standing in the middle of the room, was my reflection in the mirror. Except it wasn't my reflection. The figure in the mirror moved independently. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet controlled by invisible strings. Its hand reached up to touch the glass, the fingers pressing hard against the surface. And as it did, the mirror cracked. A deep, jagged line ran down the center of it. I felt my chest tighten as a sound, like static on a radio, filled the room. A low hum. The room seemed to tilt slightly, like the walls were shifting in and out of focus. I could hear the tap of footsteps again, but this time it was coming from the broken mirror. The figure stepped out of it. It wasn't just standing there anymore. It was coming closer. My legs felt like they were made of lead, but I somehow forced myself to run. My pulse thundered in my ears as I dashed toward the window, throwing my body against it, trying to force it open. But it was jammed. I could hear the figure behind me, its footsteps slow but deliberate. Click. The sound came from the floor. The old VHS tape. The one I had been watching only moments ago. It was lying near the coffee table, the label worn and frayed. But this time it was moving. The tape was crawling across the floor toward me, as though something was dragging it. I didn't wait. I grabbed the tape and threw it across the room, desperate to get away from whatever was pulling it. But the moment the tape left my hands, the room went completely silent. And then, a voice. "This is your choice." It was the same raspy whisper. I spun around, the walls feeling like they were closing in, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The figure, my doppelganger, stood in front of the mirror now, its grin impossibly wide. It wasn't even looking at me anymore. It was staring at the mirror. And as I followed its gaze, I saw the shadow, a dark, indistinct shape shifting behind the glass. Something else was in the mirror. I staggered back, heart racing. The whisper returned, louder this time. It echoed through the apartment, coming from every corner. "Choose." The voice was thick with malice. "Stay or go." It was offering me something, but I didn't know what it meant. I stumbled backward, my hand brushing against the kitchen counter. I needed an exit. I needed to get away. But then, I turned to look at the broken mirror one last time. The shape in the reflection was moving again. It wasn't me. It wasn't even human anymore. The eyes, they were gone. Instead, there was nothing but an endless void of darkness staring back at me. The figure reached out to touch the glass once more, and then it spoke again. "Come closer." I wasn't sure what to do anymore. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. But one thing was for sure. I wasn't going to stay here. Chapter 5, The Final Choice. I stood there in the center of the room, my heart racing. The figure in the mirror reached out again. But this time, the air around me grew thick with dread. It felt as though the very walls were closing in, suffocating me. The whispering voice, now louder than ever, seemed to come from all directions, urging me to make my decision. "Choose." The word echoed in my head, as if it were etched into my mind. Stay or go. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape, to leave this nightmare behind. But I couldn't. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't as simple as just running away. There was something else, something hidden beneath the surface. My gaze shifted back to the mirror. The figure, my reflection, was no longer smiling. Its expression was blank, hollow like an empty shell. The once ominous grin was replaced with an unsettling stillness. And then, to my horror, it spoke. "Stay, and you'll have everything you desire. But leave, and you will never know peace again. I couldn't understand it. What did it mean? I felt my breath catch in my throat as the mirror's surface shimmered. The shadow inside, the one I had seen earlier, shifted again. The dark shape seemed to stretch out toward me, its form distorting in unnatural ways. I took a hesitant step forward, unable to look away from the mirror. The closer I got, the stronger the pull. It was as if the reflection was drawing me and beckoning me to cross that invisible threshold between this world and whatever lay beyond. Suddenly, the door behind me slammed shut with a deafening crash. I spun around, heart pounding. It was locked, impossible to open. A cold sweat broke out across my forehead. I had no way out, no way to escape. The room had become a prison. I stumbled backward, my hands reaching for anything to hold on to. I gripped the nearest table, desperately trying to steady myself as the whispers grew louder. But then the mirror, it cracked. A single sharp crack split the surface, followed by another and another. The glass began to shatter, but instead of falling apart, it reformed, creating strange, jagged patterns that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. The figure in the mirror moved. It wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was reaching out, its hands stretching through the broken glass, reaching for me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. My body moved on its own, pulled toward the mirror as though the very fabric of reality was warping around me. And then, as I reached the mirror, a voice, not my own, whispered into my ear, "Come closer and you'll be free." I didn't know whether to believe it or not, but at that moment, all my doubts vanished. The pull was too strong. The promise of freedom, of escape, was irresistible. I had to know what lay beyond. I had to step into the unknown. And so I reached out. I touched the glass. The moment my fingers made contact, everything around me exploded into white light. My body was jerked forward, as though an invisible force was dragging me through the shattered mirror. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. I felt the cold embrace of glass, felt it pulling me, twisting me, consuming me. And then, nothing. Chapter 6. The Truth Behind the Mirror. The cold air around me seemed to thicken, pressing in from all sides as the whispered voice echoed in the dark. I stood in the middle of this infinite void, surrounded by the darkness, yet strangely aware of something moving in the periphery of my vision. I couldn't see it, but I felt it, a presence watching, waiting. The darkness wasn't just emptiness. It was alive, pulsating with an energy I couldn't begin to comprehend. "Welcome to your new reality," the voice repeated, but this time it wasn't just a whisper. It was clearer, closer. It felt like it was coming from inside my own head, but also from the shadows themselves. The walls, or what should have been walls, seemed to ripple as if the very space was alive, bending and shifting in unnatural ways. I took a tentative step forward, my feet making no sound on the cracked floor. The sensation of walking on nothing was disorienting. My mind screamed at me to run, to escape, but I knew it would be pointless. The reality around me wasn't like anything I'd ever known. It defied logic. It bent the rules of the world I once knew. There was no escape, only the terrifying unknown. The air was thick, like it was filled with something more than just molecules. It felt heavy, oppressive, as though the very atmosphere was trying to keep me from breathing, from moving. And then I saw it. A shape. No, not just a shape. A figure. It emerged from the shadows, like a silhouette at first, its edges distorted, flickering in and out of focus. It was tall, its form elongated like a human, but not quite. It had no face, just darkness where its features should have been, a void in the shape of a person. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure slowly advanced toward me, moving without sound, gliding through the air like it didn't need to touch the ground. As it got closer, the darkness around it seemed to deepen, the space warping as though it were siphoning the light from the surroundings. "You shouldn't have come here," the voice said again, but this time it came from the figure. It was both a statement and a question, like it was testing me, probing me. I couldn't speak. My throat felt dry, constricted, as if the air itself was trying to choke me. I wanted to ask what this place was, what the figure was, but no words came. Instead, my mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. How did I get here? What was happening? Why was I being watched by something that felt so wrong? And then, as though reading my thoughts, the figure stepped forward, its presence growing stronger with every movement. This place is where lost souls come. It spoke slowly, each word dripping with meaning. The mirror is not just a mirror. It's a gateway, a doorway to another reality, a reality where the lost are kept. You've crossed into it, and now you're here to stay. The words hit me like a physical blow. My knees almost buckled beneath me, but I managed to stay standing. Lost souls? Was that what I was now? A part of this place? This nightmare that seemed to stretch forever in all directions? The figure raised a hand, and suddenly, the space around us began to shift once more. The ground cracked open, revealing a deep abyss below. I could feel the pull of it, the desire to fall into it, to be consumed by it. But there was something else now, a sharpness in the air, a sense of clarity. I wasn't just a helpless pawn anymore. I was starting to understand. You think you're just a victim, don't you? The figure said, its voice growing more taunting. You think you can escape, but there is no escape. There is only the choice you make. It gestured toward the abyss. You can choose to fall into the void, disappear, be lost forever, or... The figure paused, letting the silence hang in the air like a weight. Or you can choose to embrace this place, become one of us. Its words sent a chill down my spine. I felt the darkness growing stronger, pressing in on me from all sides. The abyss was calling to me, but I knew now I wasn't like the others. I wasn't just another lost soul. I wasn't going to fall into it. I refuse. The words came from deep within me, louder than I expected, strong despite the fear gnawing at my insides. The figure stared at me, its faceless form unblinking. For a moment, everything was still. The world around me seemed to hold its breath, waiting. And then, with an eerie calm, the figure spoke again. You think you can defy fate? That you can escape this place? Its voice was almost mocking now. You were always meant to come here. You belong here. But I didn't want to belong here. I wanted to escape, to return to the life I once had, the life that wasn't bound by mirrors or shadowy figures. I knew what I had to do. The choice wasn't just about running or staying. It was about fighting back. I squared my shoulders, taking a deep breath. The air around me felt thick, suffocating, but I wasn't afraid anymore. The figure may have controlled this place, but I would control my own fate. Without another word, I stepped toward it. The space around us shifted once more, but this time, I wasn't being pulled into the abyss. I wasn't following the figure's command. I was choosing my own path. And just as I reached out, the figure vanished, its form dissolving into the air like smoke. The void trembled, as though something in the very fabric of this place was breaking. I had made my choice, and I wasn't going to be a part of its reality anymore.